All right. So thank you all for being here today. We'll keep an eye on who's in the waiting room to make sure everybody can get in. Just a few housekeeping. This is a Zoom, so we all know this at this point. Please make sure you're on mute, and we will have a question and answer session at the end of our presentation. You can jump in with questions and put them in the chat. That would be really great. If you could put your organization's names in your Zoom name, so we know who's here from representing different organizations. And then sometime between now and the end of this Zoom, and we'll, if ArtsGreensboro people can sort of put this in the chat throughout, is please put in the chat, once your Zoom name is right, your email. We didn't have everybody's emails. That was our fault for not putting it in the survey. So now we really want to get everybody's emails. All right. We have how many people? We've got a lot of people, 35 people. Our biggest group yet. It's a sign that Zoom world is still intact. So I'll go ahead and start. So thank you all for being here. Yesterday we had 2 town hall meetings, one at the Van Dyke performance space here in Greensboro, and the second in High Point at the High Point Theater, Arts Council in their theater space. And it was, they were both great sessions. And we've heard a couple of new questions, and then some questions that have a common theme to them. So hopefully we will be able to address everyone's questions about the work that we're doing and the new creative investment strategy, which we're rolling out today. We do have a PowerPoint presentation. We have everything on our website. Deb will make sure that you all have access to that. We'll put the link in our to the website where everything is listed, the information that you'll be hearing here today, including a copy of this PowerPoint. And we'll just get started. So I'm Laura Way. I'm the president of Arts Greensboro, and I'm really grateful and just happy you're all here. In 2020, when the pandemic started, the Arts Council here had to really dig deep, and Rebecca Buffington, who is on the call here, she was she became the board chair during the sort of the pandemic period, and the staff and the board during the pandemic really leaned in where we could to help ensure that the arts community had resources to get us through what we initially thought was, oh, we'll be back at work in May, and then we'll be back at work in September, and then it was December. And it became so evident that what we were facing was a new reality. And I know that is such a trite term now, but it was. How we operated and how we were going to come out of the pandemic was vastly different than the way we entered. And I've been saying now at the 2 town halls, but I've been saying for 2 years that 2019 will never come back, the 2019 that we were operating in. The 2019 that the arts had really started to fully recover from the Great Recession of 2008 and 9. The arts were the last to recover, and we were finally getting our footing as an arts ecology across the country. maybe not in Guilford County, but overall the arts were recovering. And then the pandemic set in. And luckily we were able to reallocate some resources and go to the county commissioners and then the State Arts Council and receive CARES funding. Funding many of you were able to receive. But in January of 21, and then in March again of 21, we started thinking about what was going to be a recovery effort that would be coming out of the federal government, which ended up being the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. And ARPA gave Arts Greensboro an opportunity to apply for a significant amount of funding from Guilford County to support a reimagination of what we can do as an arts community to be more resilient and sustainable. So for the last year now, we have been thinking about 4 focus areas around our arts community, around sustainability and resiliency. And you are all here today because you represent an organization. And arts organizations are the backbone to our creative economy and our creative community. Artists are the ones who fuel our creativity. And we celebrate all the creatives who live, work, and stay in Guilford County. So over this next hour, we will talk about how do we get from where we are now to where we're going in the future. So I'm going to start our slide presentation and then walk us through the ARPA strategy along with my colleagues, Deb Ruffino and then Catherine Mooring, who is our lead consultant on our ARPA strategy with organizations. I want to, if board members who are on this call, if they could raise their hand, you know, that proverbial hand, and let everyone know that our board is standing behind us and standing behind all of you in this work that we will be doing over the course of our ARPA strategy that starts now and will go until fiscal year 2026. So with that, I'm going to start my PowerPoint. Share screen, and I have a lot of screens open. So let me find the PowerPoint. Uh-oh, where is it? Yeah, here it is. All right, we're going to start at the beginning. All right. Slideshow. Can everybody see PowerPoint? So the new creative investment is funded through the American Rescue Plan Act with an allocation from Guilford County and North Carolina Arts Council. We have 4 focus areas in the ARPA strategy. Focus area 1 is what you are all here for today. Focus area 2, which I will just briefly describe, is around providing professional development for artists who live in Guilford County so that they can develop a business practice that matches their creative practice so that they can make a fair wage and able to live, work, and stay in Guilford County. According to data derived from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in Guilford County, people working within the creative economy, artists and other creatives, on the median, their hourly wage is $11.42. That is not a sustainable living wage, and we need to do better to help artists develop the business skills they need so that they can be more sustainable within their own creative practice and able to thrive as creators. The third area of focus is an artist in residence program in Title I 3rd grade classrooms. That is a pilot program, and it will be in the classroom. I know a lot of organizations intersect Guilford County schools and provide meaningful meaningful art experiences for children in the schools and from K through 12. This program is really intended to help drive outcomes in third grade to get children who have fallen behind through this pandemic back up to where they need to be to successfully get through the end of year testing in third grade. And then the fourth area, directly related to a lot of the work you do, or all the work you do, is a robust, multi-channel, multifaceted marketing campaign around the arts across Guilford, so that we can highlight all the work that you are doing, have that calendar of events that we have been talking about for decades, I think. We will have the first printed directory of arts organizations that, at least in my 12 years here in Guilford County. And we will have an online searchable database of arts organizations as the starting point. But then we will promote the arts of Guilford County in a tri-state area, from Virginia to North Carolina to South Carolina, to promote all the work that happens here and why we are a destination for people who are looking for exciting, creative communities to come and visit and leave their money behind through economic development and tourism. So again, focus area 1 is on sustainability and capacity building for arts organizations. And I really want to preface this by saying we are all on a learning curve here. ArtsGreensboro and I, and actually there's someone else on this call, Stephen Collier, who helped me throughout the last year, have been talking to national experts across the country. We have had, I don't know how many Zoom calls with people over the last year talking about sustainability and resiliency within the arts ecosystem. And we put together this 4-pronged plan with the bulk of the funds being dedicated to focus area 1, with an understanding that arts organizations needed to build capacity. And then really what matters is not necessarily where you are today, but where you want to be in 3-4 years from now. What happens when the ARPA money goes away? And recently on a phone call with the State Arts Council, I was presenting this plan to them, and they were talking about what scares the Arts Council is that at June 30 of 24, the ARPA money that came from the state, the Spark the Arts grants, the ARPA allocations for artists, for organizational support, and the ARPA money that came through the grassroots program is gone, and it's not going to be replaced. So it keeps them up at night. What happens when these funds are removed from our ecosystem? How are organizations who may have received significant amount of money in this year and next year, that money goes away? What are organizations going to do differently, not only just to replace that money, but to operate differently? And we have the same fear here. Is our ARPA strategy really should build on the long-term sustainability and resiliency of organizations, not what you can do today, again, but what you can do at the end of this process, so that you have developed the capacity within the areas that you need for ongoing sustainability. Because as I said, 2019's not coming back, and we need to be a more astute, resilient arts community as we move forward. So our ARPA strategy is built around those basic premises. But we're learning on the job. We're learning like you're learning. So this is a collaboration and a partnership with everyone who is on this call today. We know that we're going to find things out from all of you that we had not anticipated. So we want to be nimble and adapt and change as we go along. But it's a relationship, it's a partnership, it's a collaboration these next few years around what is working, what isn't working, how can we help and do things better? Are we meeting the needs of organizations in order to help them be more resilient and sustainable? So I ask on the very start to remember this is a partnership and a collaboration, and it's built around trust and an open dialogue with us and with each other. So with that, I'm going to move to the next slide. We have some key objectives. Now, these objectives were written when I wrote the ARPA grant for the county, which was amazingly enough almost a year ago. We submitted it in February. We revised, or in March, we revised it again in, I think, May. And then it was finally approved for funding in October. And we are in the process of finalizing the contracts with Guilford County so we can actually start distributing funds from our ARPA pool from Guilford County. But our goals, our objectives are really to strengthen organizations' operational capacity through diversified streams of revenue, staff capacity, and board development. Actively encourage peer-to-peer learning models and collaborations. And ensure that organizations are able to remain open, vibrant, and doing the important work that they're doing in the community. How are we going to do this? That's the nuts and bolts of this, is bring in content area experts to help us work within a cohort model. Our ARPA strategy is built around working collaboratively together. It's built around a cohort model. We will help organizations through a matrix modeling process, which I'll talk about in a minute, to identify the highest needs for the organization to concentrate on building capacity. The cohorts that are put together will be committed to doing business differently and work with content area experts, and then Catherine Mooring and Deb from our team for coaching and ongoing communication and mentoring. And then we'll provide direct support for organizations as we go along. These are called beneficiary grants, and Deb will be talking about them. And then help you all deliver the quality arts that you are doing already, but in a more enhanced way, and in a way that will allow you to expand your audience support and your donor support and deepen how you are delivering your artistic programming to the community. So the eligibility for this phase, organizations must have at minimum one paid staff member, a board of directors, a budget of $50,000 or higher, and based in Guilford County. If you are on this Zoom today and you are less than $50,000, we are not leaving you behind. We will have a separate cohort strategy for organizations that are small in scale to help you grow and thrive into the future. But this particular focus area right now today is organizations with 50,000 or above, staff, board, and based in Guilford County. I'm going to quickly go through the timeline, go through the matrix model, and then I'm going to turn this over to Catherine Mooring, who will walk us through the cohort. So here's where we are now, 1 month into the last part of fiscal year 23. Today, we're going to cover the matrix modeling, the formation of the cohorts, and beneficiary grants. All right. The matrix modeling for organizational capacity assessment led by Steve Zimmerman of Spectrum Consulting. Steve Zimmerman comes out of Wisconsin. He has been doing work in this sphere for a long time. A number of months ago now, I was talking to a consultant here in town, and I said, I wish there was somebody who did work around, a matrix of where organizations are in terms of where they need to focus their energy around capacity building. And she said, well, there is an organization that does that, and they're in Wisconsin. And I can't remember their name, but there is this organization. Well, it took me a little bit of time on Google, but I found Steve Zimmerman. And he actually has written a book that Deb has on her desk. Otherwise, I would show it to you all, about how organizations can sort of delve into their organizational assessment, where they need to focus their energy around capacity. But here's the basic model. On the vertical is your impact, low to high. On the horizontal is your profitability, negative to positive. Within that, all of our activities, all of our programs, our projects that we do on an ongoing basis, the things that staff and boards are investing their time and resources to do, making sure are happening, like our fund development, our fundraising, our marketing, our delivery of different programs. All of these in the matrix model get plotted on this grid. So where's the impact? And it's primarily driven initially by impact. So the things that you're doing, what's the impact on your ability to be a successful, meaningful arts organization in Guilford County? What is really interesting about this is the next phase. Working with the executive directors, your treasurer, your finance person, your outside accountant, Steve and his team will start to take those dots of where you are on your impact grid and start plotting where they are on the profitability scale. So the larger the circle is, how much time and resources your organization is spending on the different areas of program delivery and project delivery. So for example, on this grid, it's not a non-arts organization, but adult ed and family literacy. They are the big circles on this grid. They are on the sort of net zero profitability scale. And then the green little dot is fund development. What are the resources that are allocated to developing your fund development, your annual fund, your sponsorship, all of that. That is plotted on this grid. So the goal is to find the balance between things that are high impact, that are helping you achieve your mission, and the things that help allow you to actually deliver them. And you want to find that balance. Not everything will be in the upper right quadrant. Not everything will be in the upper left quadrant, but what you don't want is most of your activities happening in the lower left quadrant of this grid. But the really interesting thing about this is staff will do some surveying and assessment of the impact of what it is the organization is doing. The organizational leadership will do this mapping of impact, and board members will do some of this mapping of impact. And then the finance and the resource allocation piece will happen with Steve and, like I just said, in the leadership of the organization. But the most interesting thing that I think will come out of this is when you overlay what staff and board and organization leaders think around their matrix map. There could be a misalignment between what a board thinks and what a staff thinks, or what an executive director or a president of an organization thinks and the board thinks. So the misalignment is as important information is as important as any other piece of information, because without alignment, how do you know how you want to move forward? The board of directors has the fiduciary responsibility for the organization. They are charged with the governance of the organization. The staff help actualize where you're going, and the executive is that strategic thinker. And you need alignment in all of these three areas. And so when you see a disconnect or misalignment on the front end, you know there's work to be done. And this is internal work that all of you will do. And there may not be any misalignment. I don't want to make assumptions, but many times there is a misalignment. So this is a very, very important piece of this puzzle. And the work that Steve will do will start February 8th, and he will be working with you throughout the next number of months, 3 to 4 months. Catherine Mooring will talk a little bit more about that. Now I'm actually going to turn this completely over to Catherine to talk about who she is, why she's our lead consultant, her experience, and sort of walk us through the cohorts, a little bit more about the matrix modeling and the timeline moving forward. Catherine?
Thanks, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with all of you virtually today. It's really exciting to be a part of this initiative in partnership with ArtsGreensboro and all of you. Looking forward to getting to know lots of you over the coming months and beyond. A little bit about my background. I believe you'll get a copy of my bio and some of the materials that will be shared on the website, but I come to you from Charlotte, where I spent almost 19 years with the Arts and Science Council, which is the local arts agency in Charlotte, where I did everything from overseeing all of our external grant making investments to overseeing education, all the pre-K through 12 education programming, public art, services to creative individuals, and more. And one of the things that I really treasured the most about my years at ASC was the opportunity to essentially be the architect of the Arts and Science Council's capacity building and technical assistance programs, which I led from, let's say, all the way back to 2005 until 2021. A lot of that work involved capacity building, training, workshops, both short-term and longer-term cohort-based models that we delivered in partnership with folks within the arts community, individuals and organizations. And so I am a big believer in the combination of direct financial support, which is a part of this current process, the wraparound capacity building work, which we'll all get to experience, and the idea of doing this in a cohort structure where you all begin to become really trusted resources for one another, in addition to all the external expertise and financial support that you will receive throughout the scope of this process. For me, just in my experience, this approach really helps to build community trust. It helps to build and sort of incubate some collaborative ideas. And it really, like all together is the sort of the special sauce that lays the groundwork for sustainable change. I'll give one example. I didn't actually share this yesterday, but we did 3 years of cohort work around a deep dive into equity through one of the programs we offered at ASC. And it's really been remarkable to see how the participants in those cohorts, which included both board and staff, which is also a really important component, continue to see each other as resources. Like those groups stopped in some of those cohorts in 2015 and continue to come together and gather and share ideas and best practices and missteps and learnings. And so I really think that's pretty critical to this framework. One of the things that Laura mentioned, the initial work with Steve Zimmerman and the matrix mapping process, that work, in addition to what will follow, which I'll talk a little bit about, which is the cohort-based thematic work, is really all grounded in this concept of full and complete support for the participants. So in addition to, the more kind of academic style things that you'll experience, right? Learning about the matrix map, being guided through these assessments, you're also going to have a whole lot of access to one-on-one coaching, to ongoing support from both Steve and his team, and that's part of my role as well. I know Deb will be a resource and others at ArtsGreensboro, and for me, that's really valuable. So it doesn't feel like you are sort of soldiering it alone in a process like this, that there are others who are having a similar experience and you all are able to learn and share with each other. So the idea is that the work with Steve that will begin quite soon, Deb's going to talk about deadlines a little bit next, in February, will take place over the next several months. So we'll work into May. You will have, we'll talk about the timeline in just a second. When Laura, yeah, there we go. We'll talk about the timeline again in just a minute, but the idea is that in addition to the individual maps that each of you will have the opportunity to develop in partnership with your organizational team, the learning that happens throughout that process will also help us to hone in on some really key capacity themes that we're seeing, patterns across the sector. The themes that are at the top of this particular slide, the fundraising and staff and board leadership, are themes that we know are recurring themes within just about any organization, for-profit, nonprofit, and beyond, and that emerged through some earlier work that ArtsGreensboro did with DeVos Institute. They may not be the exact cohorts we end up with, right? So we want to be really open as we go through this process with Steve and his team, that we may surface some new areas of focus that are really important to the arts organizations in Guilford County specifically. So this is sort of a placeholder, but the idea is that towards the end of the work with Steve, we will have identified a few focus areas for cohort work, and we will then create opportunities for participating organizations to sign up for the cohorts that are kind of highest need, lowest hanging fruit right off the bat. And then you'll have some opportunities potentially to even rotate through some different cohort topics as we move ahead. So it's not, you're only going to get one chance, one shot. There are going to be multiple opportunities to learn as a team. And so let's go into the timeline. So this first slide is right now, right? We're doing the town hall meetings so that we can share all of this concept with you and begin to generate some interest. We will be confirming participants in the first phase in pretty short order. We're going to need those commitments by February 5th. Deb will talk about the process for doing that next. And part of that, this is not to create like crazy rushing sort of situation for everyone, but just as Laura mentioned, we're finalizing the contract with the county, and we have funds that must be expended by the end of fiscal year 23. And so we want to make sure that we get all of this really important work in within that time frame so that we can maximize the investment from both the county and the State Arts Council. So we will kick off the matrix map process with the interested participants on February 8th. And following that, you're going to have a lot. You'll have access to all these slides, so don't worry about having to copy down all the dates. But the idea is that we'll all come together collectively in a one big group to start. That'll be an in-person. I think Laura shared the times with the original invitation. That's kind of a quasi full day commitment for the full group to understand the matrix model, to get onboarded and get a sense of like what the next few months will hold, and then the large part of your investment from a time perspective over the coming months is going to be through mostly virtual, lots of one-on-one touch points, coaching opportunities. We'll have some gatherings where the groups get back together, but they will not be, these are not like full day kind of commitments by any stretch. And then there'll be one more full day-ish convening in May. So the idea was that this is a process that will require a time commitment on your behalf. There are sessions where you will physically or virtually be present, and there will be some behind the scenes things that you'll do as a team, as you build your matrix model, but you're also going to have a whole lot of wraparound support to kind of coach you through that process. Aligned with the matrix mapping process, we will also be building out the beneficiary funding component, and we'll hear about that next. But the idea is that we will wrap up the work with Steve in the May, June timeframe. At that point, we will have the cohorts identified. We will have subject matter experts with expertise in those cohort spaces who will be onboarded to lead you through the next phase. We go to the next slide. The cohorts component will begin kind of summer timeframe. So we're estimating just the likelihood of starting that in like June or July is maybe slim. So we're estimating that those would begin in the latter part of the summer and carry on through fiscal year 24. In addition to the cohorts that the themes that are identified through the matrix map, we also have a really unique opportunity to do some work with Rebecca Thomas and Associates. Rebecca Thomas is a really highly esteemed delivery consultant and content delivery person that I've been familiar with for quite some time. She was at Nonprofit Finance Fund for many years and did some work actually with organizations in Charlotte a number of years ago, and is a resource that Laura reached out to as a part of this work. She is a brilliant facilitator around helping organizations get under the hood of their business and operating models and make those adjustments and tweaks to sort of maximize your profitability. And so there will be some really specific cohort work with Rebecca that starts in the fall as well. And so these will all kind of stagger, so we're not stacking them all on top of each other, and we will work with you all to make sure that dates and time commitments and all of those things are reasonable and attainable. And that's the cohort plan. Again, my role is to be here to support the ArtsGreensboro team and to support all of you individually as you're going through that process. So if you need a sounding board, if you want someone to talk to, if you've got an issue or question, a suggestion for how we might adjust something, I will be your person to help navigate all of that. And I look forward to getting to know all of you and spending more time together over the coming months.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deborah Fino. I am the grants coordinator for ArtsGreensboro. I've been here for 2 years now. And what we're going to do now is kind of go through this actual nuts and bolts of the application and the funding. So as Laura said earlier, you must have one paid staff member, a board of directors, an annual operating budget of more than $50,000, and you must reside in and carry out your programming in Guilford County. The application will ask for 2 staff members and 2 board members. Preferably that would be a leadership position, a program staff position, your treasurer of your board, and your leader of your board. But one is acceptable. The process for confirming your participation and eligibility for initial funding will be a short application. We use Submittable as a portal, and in that Submittable portal, you will find the application. It will ask you about information about your board, your leadership and your staff, your last fiscal year finances, your programming information, and then it's going to have 3 very simplistic questions. 1, how do you achieve your mission? 2, top 3 strategic goals. And then 3, your top 3 challenges that you're facing now. So once you've completed that application, we have a steering committee that oversees everything that we're going through with this phase 1. And they'll review and accept the applications. Then we'll send you a confirmation letter stating that you're eligible for the Nonprofit Sustainability Institute program with Steve Zimmerman. The letters will be sent out on February 6th, at the latest February 7th, because as Catherine said, on February 8th, we are holding the Sustainability Institute meeting from 9 until 3. It's for that, you really need to reserve that time on February 8th. Preferably, board members need to be there in the morning, not in the afternoon, but it is a full time frame, 9 to 3. Beneficiary allocations. Okay, beneficiary allocations we made to organizations in February. This is what you're seeing here. And then again in May, to underwrite your time and your investment in completing the matrix map over the 5-month period. What you see below is an ARPA Multicultural Grassroots Technology Grant. That's a collaboration grant that we also are offering right now, which is really separate from this grant. This is a separate grant. This is a participation grant. The total budget that we have is about $390,000 for this fiscal year, and our fiscal year ends in June 30th, 2023. Distributions to organizations will be determined by the number of applicants that we have in the Sustainability Institute program. The applications that we talked about earlier are the organizations that are under $50,000 that do not are not qualified for this particular phase one of this grant. Will also be taken into consideration as they elect to go into a small business cohort. So it'll be all of those groups will be divided into that funding of $390,000. The final reports for the grant, your participation will be in lieu of the final reports. There won't be any written report. We'll have the matrix map, and that will give us enough information we need to complete any reporting we need to do. And we appreciate everybody's time. If you have any questions, we're always open to answering any questions. You can give us a call and let us know.
Laura, you're muted.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to look forward. ARPA money runs through 2026, but the really heavy lift is this year, next year, and into fiscal year 25 from sort of like board staff leadership participation. One of the things that we think is really important, and we will work with within the staff, we have a steering committee as well, and of course a grants committee of our board and our board of directors, is to understand organizations where they are currently at financially. What we want to do is to be able, before the end of this fiscal year, make a commitment to what will the beneficiary grants may be in fiscal year 24. That's July 1 through June 30th, 24. And we will have that for the following year as well, as people work their way through these cohorts and the sustainability and the operating and business model cohorts with Rebecca Thomas. So again, to summarize, with organizations over $50,000, after you've gone through the matrix modeling and you've had one-on-one conversations with both Steve and his team and Catherine Mooring, and you come together and we have essentially a town hall of things that we've learned over the course of the matrix assessment. Catherine, and along with Deb and the steering committee, will help make sure that people are placed in the cohorts that is most appropriate for where you are right then. And it is a fluid, ongoing process. So, you could enter into through, assuming these are the cohorts that will end up being the primary cohorts, you could enter in through the fundraising next generation supporters, and then maybe you're an organization that could use the staff and board leadership with succession planning as a cohort process. Beneficiary grants are made to continue to help support the work that you are doing during this time. And then you have that one-on-one facilitation and coaching with Catherine available to you at all times. The reason these are beneficiary grants, this language is really important. If we were just making a straight out operating grant, you gave us a budget, you said these are your expenses and this is what we want the Arts Council funds to offset, you become a subrecipient of ARPA money. You don't want to be a subrecipient of ARPA money because there's a lot of contracting that is involved. We started the contracting process in I think the last well, mid-November. We're going to sign a contract for a February 1 start date. Contracting for federal money and the requirements that go along with receiving federal money are pretty extensive. You have to go through a risk assessment. You have to make sure you have all your insurances in place. There's a lot of logistics in receiving ARPA money. So you are the beneficiary of this ARPA process. ArtsGreensboro is the recipient of the ARPA money. As the recipient of the ARPA money, on the county level, it's a reimbursement model. So ArtsGreensboro will be asking for reimbursement from the county every time we expend funds. So it is with some risk that we're doing this as we go through this process, but we believe so deeply in the work that you all will be doing in collaboration with us that it's important for us to do this work. ArtsGreensboro has been going through essentially this kind of work for the last 9 to 12 months. We've recently done a development assessment. We've hired a marketing firm to assess our brand. We're looking at our own board and staff structure. It's a lot of work. It's intentional work, but it can be energizing and empowering. So we're hoping all of you feel the same way around this, that this is an opportunity to aspire and to be inspired and to work together as a community of organizations that are delivering meaningful arts experiences for Guilford County, for the residents and visitors to Guilford County. So that's just a little bit of the flow. This is an accountant's version of being creative, having PowerPoint create a workflow for you. And again, I just want to re-emphasize that Rebecca Thomas is a national expert and will help organizations that are part of this cohort really look into their operating and business models. The reason the work of the fundraising and next generation audiences, as well as the board and staff and leadership development happen first, because you need that tool. You need to put those tools in your toolbox. Rebecca's going to ask you to use the tools that you have in your toolbox to essentially build a strong operating model that can build cash reserves for your organization. When we started this pandemic, ArtsGreensboro asked for financial information from through a survey of organizations where they were at the end of 12/31 of 19. In evaluating that financial statements and essentially the burn rate of cash that organizations had, and some questions that executive directors answered, 86% of the organizations that responded to that survey had less than 6 months cash on hand at 12/31/19. 82% of those organizations that had less than 6 had less than 3. That is a dangerous position for organizations to be placed in. And our goal is that organizations have strengthened their operating, their business model, their fundraising, their board and their staff capacity, so that but when there's a shock to our system again, we have built in that resiliency to weather those storms. It's not unlike building property close to a river or at the beach. You need to ensure that you have adequate beachhead, you're up off the ground, and you have insurance if it's available to you. This is what this is for all of us, is reinforcing and fortifying our organizational structure to withstand any shock to the system, whatever that may be. Could be leadership change. It could be a donor who has been a significant donor that is no longer with us. It could be a foundation or a corporation that has been a big supporter who leaves this space. We don't know what the next shock to the system is, but we can pretty much guarantee there will be one, maybe at a macro level, maybe at a micro level. But our goal is that we sustain and are resilient together. One of the best, I'm going to skip this slide for now. Again, thank you to Guilford County and North Carolina Arts Council. And then we're going to answer questions. I'm going to end this slideshow. One of the most important things that I believe will come out of this whole entire process is the cooperative model, talking and learning from each other, being in this together, sharing your experiences across organizations. It doesn't have to be discipline specific. It doesn't have to be budget size specific, but it builds an awareness of what's happening around us, and we're stronger when we are together. And we share information, we collaborate, we partner, we cooperate. A silo is a dangerous place to be in. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for the ground that sits under it, and it's not healthy for the structures and the organisms that are surrounding it. So part of this is breaking down silos so that we're open to conversations with one another that help each other. And I am really, again, so grateful that you are all here to help us do this. So questions, you can raise your hand. Sarah Gray has had her hand up the entire time. I don't know if that means she has a question, but if you have a question, either write it in the chat, and I haven't been monitoring the chat, or raise your hand. Sarah Gray, do you have a question? Nope. Does anyone have a question? Somebody speak up or raise your hand, or I'm going to call on Sherry because she's the one next to me on my screen. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay. Who's that?
So it's Courtney Lowe with High Point
Okay.
Community Theater.
Thank you.
I put my little hand thing out, but I don't know if it showed up. So as far as the one paid staff member, right now we're an all volunteer run organization. Is there a requirement for what the salary would need to be for the paid staff person? Or does this automatically just knock us out?
Well, there is no minimum. I mean, part of our goals overall are that the people working in the arts have a living wage. If your budget is higher than 150, I think these are conversations that this particular conversation is one we should have with Deb and Catherine. Something I've been talking to the State Arts Council about for over a year are volunteer-led organizations that essentially are giving their time and resources as an executive director, as in kind.
Yeah.
So this is a conversation we should have separate, because this is what happens in the arts environment, particularly small organizations. You are giving your time and resources as in kind to your organization. I would love that you were able to get that as a tax deduction, but I'm not in charge of the IRS.
Okay, thank you. I'll maybe set up some time with Deb to chat about this one. Thank you.
Yep. All right, anyone else?
There's a question in the chat from Stephanie about how many organizations will be in a cohort together.
So again, Catherine can please jump in here, but we suspect that 5 to 7 is probably a good number. And let's talk about how the composition of cohorts will work. We would like staff and board and maybe staff leadership, or executive director or director, whomever is the head person of the organization, a staff member and at least one board member. But there's fluidity in this. What will make this work is if organizations that are participating keep the channels of communication open within your organization, so that if an executive director is part of a cohort but cannot attend, that they can send one of their colleagues to attend the cohort, and the work doesn't have to start over, that there's this continual conversation within the organization about what's going on. And the same thing with a board member. A board member may not be able to participate, one board member through all the sessions or two, but or maybe there's board members who want to participate and they tag team. But it's up to the organizations to keep that channel of communication really wide open, so that that learning is ongoing and builds upon itself. Does that answer the question, Shante?
It's Leah with Creative Aging Network. So it sounds like there's a limit to one staff person and one board member from each organization. Is that correct?
No, I mean, you don't want to overwhelm a cohort with 12 people participating, but I think you had to be strategic in who does participate. If you have, and this is just my opinion, Catherine may have a different one, but if you have a board chair that's term is ending, maybe you want to tap the next board chair or someone on your board that is actively engaged in your work. And the same thing with a staff member. If you know a staff member is retiring in a year, maybe you need to, that's around the succession planning. Is who is the next logical person to get this learning? So don't overwhelm a cohort with 12 people. Your board is very invested in your work. I'm really so proud of you, Leah. You have a lot of board members.
Thank you, board members. I have wonderful board members.
Yeah. It just, find the right balance for
Sure.
you, your board, and your staff.
Okay, perfect.
This is Atiba with the Blue Society. I have a question. Sorry, I'm not showing my face today. I've been traveling. I am curious, because I think I missed the very beginning of the call. What does the setup look like working with others? So like, what is the, you mentioned the Zimmerman organization, you mentioned our other consultant. So what is there a model for like what the workflow looks like? Like when you're working, who are you working with and on what type of rough schedule, like monthly, bi-monthly?
Well, we anticipate, at least through the matrix modeling, that, aside from the bookends of the front end having a pretty big full day on February 8th, and then in May, when we reconvene, that these will be virtual sessions. There will be some one-on-one, but when you come together as a cohort, it'll be a virtual session between, February 9th and sometime in May. And, I would imagine they're an hour and a half at a time. There's not going to be so many that you have to schedule every single week. Oh, I need to be at the cohort. I don't think it'll have the sort of the type of schedule like the nonprofit consortium offers, that incredible program around executive director development. That's a day once every month, maybe. I forget how often. It's been a while since I've been in it. It'll be a shorter time commitment in the in-betweens, but there will be a commitment that you be present. This only works with consistent, persistent participation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? How many organizations will be in the court? That I answered that. Okay. Anything else? Any board members with questions? No. So
I have one more. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I know, Deb, you explained that the amount of funding will be dependent on how many organizations go through this process, but do you guys have an idea of what you think approximately what you think the financial piece will be, or is just no idea yet?
Not until February 6th when we know how many organizations are are interested in being in this. And Catherine is helping us with models that the Arts and Science Council has employed, is sort of figuring out, you know, how to allocate resources based on financial positions.
Thank you.
How do you watch the recorded Zoom? It'll take about an hour and a half to get this to download fully. We will put this on our website on the ARPA page. Somebody, I think, previously put into the chat where that page resides on our website. We will put it there. We really encourage you to have staff members and board members who were unable to participate in either a live session or this one to go back and watch. It's been an hour and 2 minutes since we started. They could speed up the recording, but it's I think the more people understand and learn about it across your organization, the benefit will be returned for that, will be exponential for that time. Let's see, anyone else? I don't think my board chair is on, so I'm going to impose on Rebecca Buffington to just say a few words from ArtsGreensboro's perspective.
Hey, Laura, thank you. Greetings and admiration from the entire board of ArtsGreensboro, and particularly our chair, Madison Carroll. I'm the immediate past chair of that, and I was present yesterday at the Van Dyke, and a big crowd, and a crowd that lingered. Lots of collaboration and conversations taking place in the room following that presentation, and it was so pleasing to me and everyone else, and I'm really happy to see so many of you here today. We are immensely grateful to the Guilford County Board of Commissioners, as well as the North Carolina Arts Council for this opportunity. This opportunity came about because we had a plan, and we have a plan because we have strong leadership within ArtsGreensboro, our entire staff, but particularly our leader, that I'm not sure that she doesn't eat, drink, and sleep the arts. She's been thoughtful about checking in with all of you, has the support of all of us, and has really been thoughtful about this plan, has maintained relationships with all of you and in this community and elected officials, and have really, it's a once in a generation opportunity, and you have the full support of this board. We have great expectations for you, and because we will not insult you with low expectations. You saved all of us through this pandemic. The community knows it, and this is a once in a generation opportunity to break down silos, work together, show this community what a powerhouse you are. We're not great at telling our own stories and tooting our own horns, but this is your chance. And that's our intention here. And we want to move forward that this is not a once in a generation opportunity. We want to become the part of this fiber. We want to show how strong the arts ecosystem is in this community. And whenever you have somebody talking about the strengths of our community and the economic development opportunities in this community, the arts will be part of that conversation. That is our intention, and you have the full support of this board. And bravo, we're cheering for all of you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. All right.